Should Tomlin be on the hot seat?
I think a mutual parting of ways could benefit everybody. Like, I think it could. I think that Mike Tomlin, for all of his strengths, it's pretty clear he's not going to be able to manufacture a team that has a competent offense unless he has a quarterback in place. And that's not, listen, I'm not going to kill him for it. There's a lot of good coaches that are that way. Not third rail it, but a lot of people think that applied to Bill Belichick. You know what I mean? That he, as great as he was defensively, if he didn't have the quarterback in place, it wasn't going to be able to work offensively. And I think it's safe to say they're not winning a playoff game this year. I feel confident in that. Right now, there are 7 other teams that haven't won a playoff game since the 2017 season and now. The Jets, the Raiders, the Dolphins, the Panthers, the Cardinals, and then the Broncos and Bears, who could end that streak. Haven't won a playoff game in the last 8 years, however long that is. Those teams have been through 28 head coaches. So you normally don't get, now there has to be a happy medium between just always changing head coaches.
Part of it, yeah.
But I think that if the Steelers said, you know what, we're going to try for the first time ever this whole offensive-minded head coach thing, and if Mike Tomlin's like, I'm going to go somewhere where the quarterback's already there, and I don't have to spend so much of my time and energy trying to figure out how we're going to eke out 18 points with Mason Rudolph or Kenny Pickett or 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers or 39-year-old Big Ben at the end, I think could be best for everybody.
So for me, firing him seems extreme. The mutual parting of ways makes more sense because for me, when you look at the Steelers, I don't know if there's a coach that you can insert and when you're taking Mike Tomlin out and they could sustain the type of winning with what he has not had at quarterback. And so I don't want to discredit what he's done. However, in saying that, he talked about the standard is the standard. That's winning is our game, or I think it's
winning is entertainment.
Yeah, football is our game, and winning is our business, or we're in the business of winning. That's how he defines it. They haven't been in the business of winning when it matters most. That's the issue. And so when your messaging is consistent, but who's receiving that message isn't delivering because he talks about how the standard is upheld, it's with the players and how they perform time after time again on the field of play. That hasn't been the case when the messaging needs to be at its height, and that's the postseason. To your point, I don't care who you get in there, the standard of Pittsburgh is going to be winning in the postseason, not just sustaining the tradition of winning in the regular season, which he's done better than any coach we've ever witnessed. And so I just don't think that they're going to be willing to immediately make that change. But at the same time, the messaging may have grown a little stale with the guys within that locker room. And in another locker room, it just hits, and they get off to a great rolling start.
Well, you said there's no coach out there or very few coaches out there that'll go in there and sustain the level of success that Tomlin has. But that's what they need. The problem is Tomlin.
They need to follow.
Yeah, Tomlin is so good that even without a quarterback for the last 9 years or whatever it's been, he's been able to get them in the playoffs several times, win 9, 10 games, whatever. They're going to keep doing that. If Tomlin stays, Rodgers, let's say he leaves next year, they bring in Kyler Murray, whoever, they're going to be the same team. They're basically the same as they were last year with Mason Rudolph. They're going to be the same team if they get rid of Tomlin. And I don't want to say get rid because I think hot seat isn't the right term. I agree with you, like Nick, the mutual parting of the ways I got that written down. No, but like they don't generally fire Pittsburgh.
Okay. Let's, we're kind of talking in circles here, and we're talking around this because nobody wants to, disrespect Mike Tomlin. They don't even want to say that he should be on the hot seat when, of course, you should be on the hot seat. That's how this works. Bill Belichick was on the hot seat. Nick Sirianni just won a Super Bowl. He's on the hot seat. Like that's how this thing works. That's how it works. Okay, if Bill Belichick can get fired, then anyone can get fired. Okay, Andy Reid got fired. So yeah, Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl a few years later, got fired. So you can't just say, oh, Super Bowl and this or that. Mike Tomlin is an awesome coach. Mike Tomlin is a great coach. That can be true too, and it is true. I'm a fan of Mike Tomlin. But here's the reality, because they're saying like, oh, who would have won with Mason Rudolph and this and that. And I agree with that. And that is credit to Mike Tomlin. But here's what you're lacking with Mike Tomlin, okay? Because Mike Tomlin's like, yeah, it's okay. We can have Mason Rudolph. We can do these things. Whereas if you have an actual great offensive coach, they're able to now elevate, right? If you have Kevin O'Connell, he's like, give me Sam Darnold. I can win with Sam Darnold. You know what? Let's bring on Daniel Jones. And, obviously I didn't get a chance to do much with Daniel Jones, but then Shane Steichen is like, give me Daniel Jones. These offensive coaches have the ability to find these other players and know, you know what? I'm not going to win with Mason Rudolph. If you had Shane Steichen right now with the Pittsburgh Steelers, he probably would have said, yeah, let's bring in Daniel Jones right now. I'm going to be able to make this work. Don't trade George Pickens. I'm going to have a conversation with Pickens. We're going to talk about it. If you still want to bring in CeeDee Lamb, now I got Daniel Jones. I got CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, and DK Metcalf. We're going to bring in DK. We're going to bring in, we're going to have Pickens. We're going to be good. This is what I need from a drafting standpoint. We're not drafting defense. I need O-line, whatever it is. So they can elevate even though they don't have this great special quarterback. It's what we've seen with the Colts. It's what we've seen with the Vikings. It's what we've seen with the Seahawks, right? Now even that franchise is able to be like, hey, you know what? We can bring in Sam Darnold. Let's bring in Sam Darnold. The Steelers could have done that. They didn't. They could have had Daniel Jones. They didn't do that. They didn't make those moves. Mac Jones now, it's just like you could bring in a Mac Jones, but if you actually have an offensive coach who you can truly, fully trust, that you can say, listen, should we bring in Mac Jones right now? Or is that just a little bit of fool's gold and more of like a short-term problem? Or you have a great coach who's like, no, I can make Mac Jones work. I see what he's doing. I see what he have. We have the support system around him. We can win a lot of games right now with Mac Jones. We can elevate. We'll be better with Mac Jones than we are with Mason Rudolph, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, old man Aaron Rodgers, etc., etc., etc. And so that is something that you're lacking with a Mike Tomlin. Look no further than literally moving on from George Pickens, who's now arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL, one of the best, top 2, top 3. That is a disaster. That is awful. That is awful. It becomes inexcusable. It becomes inexcusable. It really does. And so Mike Tomlin deserves blame for that. He deserves blame. It just is what it is. And when you haven't won a playoff game in a million years, like, yeah, you're going to be on the hot seat. You're going to be on the hot seat. That's just the way it works. Just because you've never had a losing record and won a Super Bowl doesn't automatically mean you're invincible. Bill Belichick won Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl. He had, 4 or 5 years where they weren't winning and they're like, goodbye. See ya. And that's just the way it works. It's just the way it works. So it's been impressive what Mike Tomlin has been able to do with this team, but it's also true that it hasn't been enough. And when you also now don't get the sense that the defenses that have been built here have been great, that's also a problem. It's one thing if you could say these defenses have been great, special, top in the NFL. Then you could say, all right, we just got to find the quarterback. Pittsburgh Steelers got to go all in on hiring, a great, they could have got Josh McDaniels, right? They could have done something like that and said, we got to just get someone to run the offense. He's going to be the decision maker. He's going to be the one that has final say on the offense. Pretty much what the Eagles did with Fangio and what Andy Reid does with Spags. It's like, you control the defense. You are the defensive mind. You are the defensive legend. You figure it out. You are the defense. That is what it is. That's what you would need Mike Tomlin to do with the offense. But his defense is still lacking. And so then you're really kind of like, what's the story here now? So, yeah, all of that culminates in being on the hot seat. And it just It just makes sense. Now, the big thing is you don't just fire Tomlin for the sake of firing Tomlin, like what a lot of these teams do, where they just fire someone and they're just like, we're just firing him, we got to move on. And it's like, you have to have a plan. The Patriots had a plan. They said, we're getting Vrabel, right? Like, there was a legitimate plan of like, we know what our next steps are right now. We're firing this coach and we know who we want to hire. We know who we're going after right now. I don't know who that guy is for any team right now, quite frankly. I really don't. And yeah, it's just, I mean, it's just, see if there's other offensive minds. Like, if you want to still hold on to Tomlin, then you bring in a Mike McDaniel potentially and be like, hey, want to run our offense if he gets fired in Miami. But then you still need to kind of figure out a quarterback situation, and you don't want to have him just try to figure out something with Mason Rudolph. But again, that's where you need to have the confidence of like, I can take a Mac Jones, I can take a Daniel Jones, lots of Joneses, I can take a Baker Mayfield, right? Like I can win with this quarterback, I can elevate with this quarterback. And you can tell the difference between a Mason Rudolph and a Sam Darnold, or you're the type of coach who can turn a Mason Rudolph into a Sam Darnold, right? Like, that is the power of a great offensive coach, and it's, insanely important for a team's success. And when you don't have that, you suffer major repercussions. The Philadelphia Eagles with Nick Sirianni do not have an offensive mastermind. The offense is now having problems, and they do not have the head coach that can solve that. That is a massive issue for them, and will always leave him, susceptible to saying, goodbye, thanks for the ring. We'll write you a great letter of recommendation. Best of luck. And so, that's the way it works. That's why these guys get paid a gajillion dollars. Pay me $10 million a year and have you all scream at me every single year that I'm terrible and that I should be fired. And it's like, all right, that's a deal I made. You guys bring on that heat. I'm on the hot seat every single year. You pay me $10 million a year. That's a perfect deal. I'll take that deal. Let's go. Pay me the $10 million year after year after year after year. But every single year, you guys can tell me how bad I am and how I need to get fired. And other people can defend me and say, that's too mean. He's deserving the benefit of the doubt. Whatever. That's part of it. That's part of the deal you make. That's part of the agreement. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Pittsburgh Steelers? Should Mike Tomlin be on the hot seat? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.